I want to talk about American Pharaoh.
Wait, what?
American Pharaoh.
Who's that?
So you're one of the few people. American Pharaoh won the Triple Crown last Shabbos, which was a very powerful feat because the first time 37 years, the first time that a horse has won the Triple Crown. That's
the Jewish horse.
The Kentucky Derby.
What animal won the Triple Crown before?
No, the first horse in 37 years to win the Triple Crown.
But that implies that there's another animal. That
No, the fact is that the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. And this horse was really special because in the Belmont Stakes he was only 2 seconds behind Secretariat's record. And Secretariat is like the horse, you know. Anyways, the thing is the horse is owned by a Egyptian Jewish individual who's Shomer Shabbos, and what he does is he gets a big RV. In other words, if there's a hotel close to the racetrack,
Shomer Shabbos at the time.
right? Well, if he's parks at at certain racetracks, he stays in a hotel near the racetrack, walks there, and so forth and so forth, and goes to and walks the racetrack and sees the horse. And in the in the Belmont Stakes, there's no hotel close to the track, so he rents a very large luxury RV, and they park it in the grounds,
on the racetrack,
and he walks over there on Shabbos. That's known because everyone knows about this, that he has Shabbos meals, and Shabbos, then he goes to watch the horses. Okay, to watch the horse. Okay, so the fact is that it raises some interesting halachic questions. I mean, the point is, running in the race is a business. I mean, you know, if he wins the race, he gets paid.
Shoots him or not shoots him? Shoot him.
What?
Is there partnership or not partnership?
No. So the point is that's part of the issue. How can he run? How does he do this? So I don't know. Maybe as a head to Mechira on Shabbos, whatever it is. That's not really my issue. I mean, that's part of the issue. Part of the issue is how does he? I mean, there are halachic issues involved.
Is it not similar to buying a lottery that you know will be drawn on Friday night?
Not really.
Why not?
Not really, because it's not really a business. It's not really a business.
It's the same idea. It's mostly luck. You know, people have strategy and. You're allowed to own a horse.
Pro line on Shabbos.
What?
What about like more? What about like pro line on Shabbos?
You know, it's an interesting question you're asking.
Because that takes skill.
What's pro line?
It's a store. I don't think it's a business. Like, I don't think you're actually. Interesting question. What you're saying is that the horse race is not really a business. If the horse actually wins, he owns the horse. So, I mean, but the point is he has to pay. I mean, the horse has to pay the jockey.
Yeah, but.
I mean, it's an interesting question. You know something? You run the issue of schora on Shabbos. The fact is that it's a real interesting question about buying the lottery. I have to think about it. I'm trying to look into it.
Because I mean, you can say, well, with the horse race, you know, he's not picking up the money after Shabbos. He's getting it deposited into his account. But nowadays, you can buy a lottery ticket online and, you know, have millions deposited into your account if it wins.
The fact is that it's not a question of payment. It's really interesting because what you're asking is the parameters on what constitutes a business that you can't run on Shabbos.
Also, all the steps involved in owning a horse, owning a jockey.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all.
That's more of.
But the fact is,
having a pet and having a handler for it.
Yeah, but the fact is,
the
truth is what you're saying is that see, in the race, you're putting him in the race, but the fact it's not the same thing as luck. But the point is, what you're really raising in terms of the lottery is that the lottery, you're plugging into something that will have money done on Shabbos. I have to check into what exactly
you get it to be usher because I want to see this on Facebook.
What?
Rob says you're not allowed to buy lottery tickets.
No, you know something? I can't see. See, the question that exists is like this: is that there's a certain idea of schora. The reason for the understanding of it's really actually an Indian of Kenyan.
Yeah.
The fact is that at least in the issue of Kenyan, that's why matana is a problem on Shabbos. You can't do kinyanim on Shabbos. The point is, so schora leads to kinyanim, right? And that's so you have to really see what the definition is. And that's why I have to check into it because I think a lot of the way it's defined is a lot of aspect of kinyanim on Shabbos. Even without money, you can't do kinyanim on Shabbos. So simply. The point is that's why the matana is sometimes a problem and stuff like that. So but then again, what kinyan did he actually do? I mean, the fact is, well, on the other hand, he did accept the trophy and was there. I mean, you know something.
Yeah, well, that's another issue.
It raises an interesting question of what I heard people sit there and say he's running a business on Shabbos because it is his business on Shabbos. But the fact is what really is the business. I mean, the point is that when you
if the horse would have got injured.
That's something but the fact is that okay. So
but there are businesses you can run on Shabbos.
That's exactly right.
If you have a kennel, then you can feed the dogs.
Or they run out of feed.
Okay. The fact is that that's where you get into issues of businesses. Obviously, the point is that a caterer runs his business on Shabbos, so he's not being paid on Shabbos. But caterers do things. So the truth is that there are definitions of what's permitted, what's not permitted, but basically the issue is focused on kinyanim, and maybe this doesn't have kinyanim. I don't know. That's not really what I wanted to deal with. What I wanted to deal with though is the greater question of the relationship of the world to halacha or the world to Judaism. Because here, what you have here is an individual who declares himself to be Shomer Shabbos, and he is doing things out of the ordinary because of his commitment to Shabbos, right? He's getting this RV and so forth and so forth, and not getting into technical issues of halacha or something like that. But at the same point in time, his interest would not be defined as a Shabbostic interest. In other words, on Shabbos, is this a day that you want to go to the horse races? Is it a day where you want to watch something like that? The point is what it really comes down to is an issue of the connection of worldly interests with religious interests. This touches upon a lot of things. It touches upon what kind of music you like. Touches upon going to a movie. The fact is, if you don't see any value in the secular world, then there's not going to be any issue about that. The point is that, and then comes the issue that of what you think is a value. See, the point is that this person's not sitting there and saying, he's doing something that it's going to save the world. He likes horses. He likes horse racing, and he wants to be involved in this business, in this whatever occupation, in this interest, and so forth and so forth. And the fact is, it's like someone else likes pizza, right? And someone else doesn't, and so forth. And the question emerges is what's the place of those interests in the religious interest, right? That's the real question. So a person likes music. They say, "Oh, I like Zmiris. I like Jewish music, whatever it is." Other people says, "No, I like music," which means I like
country, jazz,
country, other things like that. So how do you look at that kind of situation? So, in a certain way, you could sit there and say, "What's the shaykhus to Torah?" So, there's no shaykhus to Torah. What's the value of it? And why does that be an interest? And that becomes a real interest. That becomes a real issue in how do you take your personal likes, or your personal interests or feelings, and connect it with your Torah life. And the fact is that really what underlines it is what then becomes the definition of Yiras Hashem. In other words, if you like jazz music and you want to listen to jazz, what's the role of that? How do you understand that? And it's a personal feeling, and you can't sit there and say, "Oh well, it's so important to know jazz or to like jazz."
Right.
But it's something that you personally have a connection to. So how do you relate to it? So some people may sit there and say, "Well,
you justify."
How do you integrate it in your Torah consciousness? You know what I mean? That's really a lot of you have personal interests and you like things and so forth and so forth. What's the place of the things you like in your Torah consciousness? And in a simple way, right? If you have a straightforward definition of Torah interests, you can sit there and say, "This is halachically," which means you're like I like nigunim and this and so on and so forth. Then it's pretty straightforward. But
isn't gambling an issue to begin with?
It's something else. But it's not an issue for this.
No?
I don't want to deal with it, and it's not really an issue.
Yeah.
He's not living on gambling, but the horse racing. He likes horses. He likes the industry. So that's what he wants to do. He likes it. That's why he makes money on it. Okay. In other words, what I'm raising here is I'm not even raising like you raised halachic questions. I didn't really fully question it as a business and so forth and so forth. I mean, the fact is that if I really have to go over all the laws of business on Shabbos, because it's not so simple. It's basically the issue of kinyanim. Did he do any kinyanim? I don't know. I mean, that's a different issue. But the fact is, he was running his business. But okay, so that's something different. I'm not trying to deal with the halachic issue. I'm trying to deal with how we look at our interests. You know, a person wants to go to a baseball game, likes baseball. Likes going to baseball games, right? Okay, so that's so what place is going to a baseball game or and so some people say no place. It's like not really it's maybe it's mutter, but if you really want it to be someone really really committed, your definition of committed behavior would be much narrower. I'm not going to say it's usher, but it's like like someone would say, listen, if I was really on a certain midrega, I wouldn't watch baseball, but I mean I watch baseball. So the point is though, is that usually leads to the argument against modern orthodoxy and stuff like that. Now there's arguments for modern orthodoxy that you need to have secular knowledge in order to fully understand the Torah, like the Gra said. But the point is that we're not talking about secular knowledge. We're talking about secular interest. There was a story my son said.
What's comes to secular interest?
Like baseball. I like art. I want to go to the art museum because I like art.
But like, what makes that secular over?
Oh, so
religious.
Over.
So is it?
Well, it's religious for many people, but that's
like studying the Quran is like religious, but like liking baseball, liking martial arts, enjoying art.
secular.
Yeah, it's secular.
But that doesn't have like a place in Judaism. Like,
And that's the point I'm asking. The fact is that's exactly it. The point is
well,
that there's
it's not got a place in Judaism, but not to the level of religion that a lot of people take it.
the point is that finding a place in Judaism, I'm not. You see, the point is
it depends on the hobby.
This is not.
Yes, but is it a hobby or an obsession?
It's no. Wait a second. The issue is. You can get into where the prioritizations are. You can sit there and say it's not usher, so therefore I can include it, but it's not something that would be something that you would prioritize. That's why I said this is the argument against modern orthodoxy. The argument when modern orthodoxy has an argument for secular studies, one of the arguments of secular studies is that you need secular studies to understand Torah. That's a different issue. That's the issue of knowledge. So it is an issue in knowledge. Is knowledge that's absent what you would call secular knowledge, which is knowledge which comes from non-Torah sources like science. Is that good or not? Is that necessary within Torah? So the argument of people, including the Vilna Gaon, was that you need secular knowledge to fully understand Torah. There's other people who took the argument just the opposite, who said, no, you don't need secular knowledge to do this on Torah. That's a question in knowledge. That's one question. It's one of the issues between what you would call Torah and Derech Eretz or modern orthodoxy. Not that Torah and Derech Eretz is the same as modern orthodoxy, and more Haredi positions. There's another issue, and that issue is what you like doing.
Right.
Right? So if you sit there and say what you like doing should be Torah based. So maybe you like baseball, so you go to a baseball game, but it's not something you really strive to do. You sit there and say, gee, I wish I didn't have this nourishkeit. But it's mutter, so I get into it, but it's not something that I look up to. And there's another viewpoint that basically says, and then the question comes that says, something? There are things in this world that just simply touch me, like music, certain music.
Athletics.
What?
Athletics.
Watching a baseball game, and it makes me a better Jew. It fits into Judaism. Now, the question that exists with the horse racing is that here's a guy who, I'm not turning into a tzaddik now. I'm not trying to sit there and say that he makes a cheshbon of what he thinks is really what the best way to live is, within Torah. He says he obviously feels it's not usher to do this, whatever he's doing, and so forth. But the point is that how do you deal with an interest? Like, you like art. You like athletics. You like baseball. How do you integrate it in your world of Torah? Okay, in terms of understanding who you are. Okay, that's the real question that exists here.
So frivolity for the sake of frivolity, is that?
Even the word frivolity already makes it sort of secondary. It's already saying it's
frivolous.
So I'll tell you where a question exists. I'll tell you a point. Okay, I was reading about Yehuda Levi. Yehuda Levi was a poet, right? He's very much into poetry. He wrote poetry. Okay. Yehuda Levi is a Rishon. I mean, you're talking one of the big Bali Hashkafa and so forth and so forth. Yet he had this drive to write poetry, and not every poem he wrote was poetry of Sheva Pohodah. It was not just simply religious poetry. Somehow he had this drive to write poetry, and he felt it was part of his being. Now, how do you understand Yehuda Levi as a poet?
Wow.
Just the fact that he was interested in poetry, the fact that he he had this drive to write poetry, and he integrated it. The truth is that that's something that really exists within human beings. A lot of times, what you find is that the definition of what is proper behavior focuses on very rigid definitions from Torah, such as the issue with music, right? It's got to be nigunim, otherwise it's not really it's not good to listen to that kind of music. And I'm not talking about the words. The words is something different. There's certain songs that are just disgusting. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like you happen to like Mozart. You happen to like Beethoven, right? What about playing Beethoven in your house? Okay? The fact is that there's an aspect in Torah and Derech Eretz where Shimshon Hirsch seemed to have spoken very positively about some German poets. Okay? You see this in the sense, I mean, it's well known that Rav Lichtenstein Zatzal was very much into baseball. He had an interest in baseball. Was that just his batala? The fact is that what you really have is the fact that there's some aspect of our personality that finds some expression in different aspects of life.
Right.
And I'm not dealing with the halachic issues in terms of American Pharaoh. The fact of the matter is that there's a whole big issue, discussions among rabbis and so forth. In certain ways, the owner of American Pharaoh has, in certain ways, been Mekadosh Shem Shemayim, because he sits there and says, "I'm from. I didn't drive to the thing. I saw an interview with him. He says God is number one." So forget the halachic issues. The guy is making a statement about religious commitment. And people are looking upon it, okay, he's an observant Jew. So that's showing his commitment.
Jews used to make money from Pharaoh. Now Pharaoh's making money from the Jews.
So the fact is that that's a short way of looking at it. But the truth is he had an interest in horse racing. And he followed through in it. And the point is how do you deal with those kind of interests? And the fact is that really becomes an issue. It becomes an issue in terms of looking at yourself. Okay? I mean, the point is, you've mentioned martial arts. Right. So, do you only do martial arts because it will serve a purpose, it will defend me when it's but the point is there's certain people, when you get into martial arts, they're into it. Yeah. There's something about it that touches them. Yeah. And
usually their trainer.
there's other things, and the fact is that becomes a further issue. Now, we have halachic parameters of how we're supposed to apply these things and so forth. But what I've always found of interest is the very question. See, I don't necessarily have an answer. I've gone back and forth with this, with sports and interest in sports and so forth and so forth. I've developed some practical reasons why it's good to know about sports and other things like that. There's an article on my website about how sports can be helpful to you. But the point is that I'm just talking about interests. Mm-hmm. That somehow personality of an individual has interests. And it's so easy to define those interests as Yetzer Hara. And therefore the only thing that's right is sitting and learning and very, very specific behavior. And anything that says I like something else, like to have a barbecue, Why? Because I like barbecuing, right? I like cooking, right? I like being an artist. And the fact is how does that fit into the Torah perspective? And I don't think it's an easy question.
If it doesn't, is that really an issue?
Well,
I mean, if it doesn't.
I think that what always hit me, and I was saying this before. My son tells a story. He had a Rebbe who was a shamash of Rabbi Ber. And this Rabbi told a story of the Rav. The Rav went to some Gvir's house in New York City, some apartment, something like that. And the Gvir had to excuse himself for a sec. He had the Rav in a room, and he said to the Rav, yeah, you could look at, every one of these paintings on the wall are masterpieces. If you like to look around, and the Gvir is going to start explaining who drew every painting. Like, okay, and the Rav Sheshaber, this is what the guy says. Before the Gvir can explain who did the paintings, Sheshaber said, "So Rembrandt, its name is such and such was written around it, and painted that year. That over there is a Monet," and it was like, and Rav went around to every painting in that room and stated what it was.
Right.
Now, was this knowledge that the Rav needed to understand the Gemara? No, the Rav understood there was other knowledge. So when the Rav read physics, I mean, in his Sefer Halachic Mind, he's quoting Einstein, okay, because he felt it was important for him to read the theory of relativity, and he's quoting Freud, and he's quoting, I mean, he read those things he felt were necessary for knowledge, but to know who all these painters were, the Rav had an interest in art. And the fact of the matter is, he felt that was an aspect of his being.
It may have just been plaques under the painting.
What?
No.
Anyway, so the point is that personality is something that's significant. See, I don't want to speak about the individual case or whatever, but what hits me is that what you have here is someone who's defined himself as frum and is saying, I have an interest. It's called the horses.
Yeah.
And I don't know I don't know how to integrate it. I don't know. There are for sure halachic questions, a lot of issues like this. I'm not trying to sit there and say everything's okay, not okay. I don't want to judge. But I'm saying that what a lot of people don't recognize is that there's an aspect of our life that reflects personality. The kind of music that we like, the kind of art that we like. Okay? And that needs to find some place in our Torah expression. Some people are able to find it more within more acceptable, rigid boundaries, such as nigunim or whatever. Other people, had to find it differently. But the point is that to totally negate it, to me, is to negate the reality of our personalities. And that to me is something that I see in this whole event. Okay, and is it more difficult in certain ways? I think that in certain ways, personality becomes, as everyone says, is the Yetzer Hara. It can be an Yetzer Hara people living with your personality. So a lot of people try to limit someone's personality or aspects of personality, because that makes for a lot of halachic questions. And the point is that, and they're real questions, and sometimes halachic does limit what is personality to do. But the point is that the reality is that you have to deal with the fact that we all have interests, we all have personality. And one answer from people, more right wing, is that's the Yetzer Hara, and the other aspect is no, that's something that we are supposed to keep with us, even though how we keep it going with us is a little bit of a becomes a little bit of a challenge of knowing its proper place. There's a certain point in time where hey, listen, you like baseball, that's fine, but you're not going to spend your life watching baseball games. You're going to learn. I mean, the fact is that
balance.
It's balance becomes a real issue.
Money out of it.
Well, balance becomes an issue. Balance becomes a real issue in terms of finding the right place for balance, because you know, for one person watching a half-hour TV show that's the kind of balance he needs in terms of having some type of relaxation that brings out some massive personality. Then person one watches 6 hours of TV. That's basically wasting away. So the point is that's all part of that issue. Anyways, to me, I thought that was an interesting issue in our world today. So I just wanted to mention that personality becomes significant.
So next week we talk about gambling. About buying the lottery.
No, I want you to know something. I'm going to try and look up some info on what do you call it? On
buying a lottery that's going to be drawn on Chabura.
I'm going to try and find some info on what exactly the parameters are for starting for business.
I want to explore the idea of hobby. Halachic grounds to actually, because I've argued, because I guess this is what it comes down to when you argue with
anyone.
Right.
Well, no, I've been in the kollel and I get all arguing about martial arts, but it's like.
But even hobbies, stamp collecting.
Yeah.
Right. The fact of the matter is that, but always what hits me is the amount of, like the fact that you had. Yehuda Levi was very into poetry.
Yeah.
He had a real drive to write poetry. You know?
No, how about the hobby of being baseball players, things like that? Well, it's not a hobby.
No, but the fact is that you can talk about a hobby. So people justify, athletics because it's.
You're doing a some form of.
It's an addiction.
Fighting. Well, that's something.
You got to find a balance between.
He was a musician.
He also, I'm sure, he hit Goliath with a slingshot. He knew how to use a slingshot.
Okay, but the thing is but you can justify that because that defends someone. What I'm talking about is
people get into these things because they have a personality to these things.
Right. The fact is that there's certain things that are easier to justify because this teaching me how to defend and it's a constitution and stuff like that. Other things like stamp.
Okay, so I guess the expression. Hobbyist sophistication. Let's say you have a person who sits there with a model
train.
Right.
A Gundam wing, anime character, and you're just modeling out all the little details. And
So the fact is,
lots of money
and that's exactly it. What even like a hobby like stamp collecting? Just something. And the fact is that you can't. You're not going to give it a rigid halachic definition. That's why I only collect stamps that, what difference does it make anyways?
You can't collect stamps from Muslim countries.
Well, I mean the point is that that's exactly it. And what you're seeing is that just someone's interest becomes significant. Okay.